Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. It has been our endeavor at BYJU'S to help and support IAS aspirants at every stage of their preparation. Now, when IAS Mains Examination 2021 is over and students are gearing up for the last leg of this prestigious examination, that is personality test, we are back again to assist you forming an insight and opinion regarding multiple issues, topics that concern our great nation and its body polity. Personality test is about ability to present yourself. It is about your awareness. It is about your presence of mind. And that is why, like last year, we have meticulously curated a special series of talk and lectures to help our would-be steel pillars of nation in their personality test. In this special series of talk, we invite renowned personalities, the stalwarts of our nation, eminent academicians, intellectuals, to address the young aspirants of civil services examination and guide them by sharing their views on various topics, and these topics have been carefully chosen from various spheres of knowledge, that is Indian economy, India's foreign policy, our judicial system, ecology and environment, etc. When we started this series last year, we received overwhelming response from students in general and those preparing for this personality test in particular. This series will indeed help you to get ready and provide you with pragmatic insights to maximize your marks in the personality test. Today, we are joined by a legendary economist, Professor Ila Patnaik ma'am. She is professor at National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. She was the principal economic advisor to the Government of India from May 2014 to December 2015. She has also worked at National Council of Applied Economic Research and Indian Council for Research in International Economic Relations. She was also economics editor at the Indian Express. She was the only female economist ranked within top 10 in India. So welcome to BYJU'S IAS ma'am. It is indeed our pleasure and we are honored to have you in our series.
Thank you.
Ma'am, this ongoing crisis between Russia and Ukraine, for sure it will have implications for India. Be it energy sector, be it even the theory of non-alignment, be it Indian students going there. I'm just talking from a layman's perspective. What would be economic implication for India?
See, one of the most important implications is for the global economic conditions, because it creates a lot of uncertainty. Any war actually, including this one, creates a lot of uncertainty in the world. So, you will see stock prices moving, currencies moving, so the ruble depreciated 30%, then Russia shocked interest rates, really hiked interest rates. After that, you see all over the world there is a lot of uncertainty and global capital flows get affected. Yeah. So, that is the first big implications of any war, not just this one, but any such big, with a big power involved, So, not a small war in a corner of the world, but with a big power like Russia involved, with NATO just right there. Right. So, with the Ukraine applying for EU membership, so with big powers involved, it leads to uncertainty in global markets. Right. And first thing that gets affected with that is global markets for money, currencies. So, there is a lot of volatility that we will see there. The second, because this is Russia and Ukraine, where it's gas and oil which is involved, and this being one of oil being one of and gas being one of the biggest exports of Russia, and the pipeline which goes through and which Germany has now put a hold on. So the big question, second big thing, for because of these particular forces who are involved, because Russia is involved, is going to be the impact on the price of oil. And the oil price already, it went up to 105 and
dollar per barrel.
Dollar per barrel.
And
so
India is heavily import dependent.
India is heavily import dependent, and India imports. India's current account deficit can get hit.
Right.
Second, the prices of oil have implications. So first is the direct implication. We all face that.
Right.
The second is transport prices go up when things get move around, so prices of that go up. And the third is that the fiscal deficit goes up because fertilizer subsidies would go up. So fertilizer prices get determined by international oil prices.
Right.
And when international oil prices go up, then unless you raise fertilizer prices, which most governments are very reluctant to, what happens is that the fertilizer subsidy goes up. So already it was around 1 lakh crore, and I think the assumption then was a 75 or so dollars per barrel as the price of oil. So if there's a 25% increase in that, then your subsidy could also go up sharply.
Go up, right.
And that also puts pressure on prices. So all these three things put pressure on inflation. The direct effect of higher petrol prices, the indirect effect because of transport prices going up, and third, the overall indirect effect through demand increase because your fiscal increases. So all that is the effect on prices. Then you have an effect on the current account because your oil, the price of oil has gone up, so your import bill goes up, so you need to maybe export more, or you will have a current account deficit, a larger current account deficit. So all that can be quite destabilizing. So a larger fiscal deficit, a larger current account deficit, higher prices of oil, uncertainty in global capital markets, which could push the rupee this way or that way. And for us, I think it's also very important because Russia has been a long-term friend as well as defense partner. So will defense supplies get hit? So that's another big question. Will pharma exports get hit? Because we sell pharmaceuticals to Russia, so do those get hit? So there's a lot of relationship. Tea, India exports a lot of tea. So does that get affected? And even if we find ways around of working around the sanctions, but it does become difficult. We've seen that in the case of Iran.
So India will be badly hit.
India is quite likely to be affected by this crisis.
And particularly during COVID, when economy is already down.
When it's already in a difficult situation, the last thing we needed was this a war, any war. The last thing a world needed was a war.
So if it lingers, it will have more impact on.
It could have more impact. But I think India is maintaining its neutrality. India doesn't want to get into a war which is between basically two Western powers. So we'll have to, somehow, while doing that, still wait, watch, continue to keep relations with Russia as well, because we are heavily dependent, especially on defense.
Long term, we can diversify our exports, import, but that will be a long term solution.
And not very easy, because we've had a long partnership with Russia.
There was one topic in news that Russia has been thrown out of SWIFT system. Earlier, Germany, few of the European nations, they were opposing this, but now Russian central bank and some other banks, they have been thrown out of SWIFT messaging system. What is it, ma'am, and what is its impact?
So what is the SWIFT? We should just first understand what is SWIFT. So SWIFT is a way for banks to message each other. Actually, it is not that money flows through the SWIFT, it is a mechanism for messaging. For about 2,000 commercial banks they need to tell each other that, okay, my guy is sending you this much money, and that gets confirmed. So, whenever you have a foreign transaction, you have to give a SWIFT number, right? So, the SWIFT system fundamentally allows us to send money out, to bring money in. So, I mean, let the technicalities be on one side. The purpose it serves is foreign flows of money, inwards and outwards. That's the purpose it serves. So, when sanctions were imposed on Russia, then one of the things they did was to say that it will not be part of Russian banks. So, Russian commercial banks who were part of the SWIFT, who were doing transactions for them, will not be part of SWIFT, which then means how do they sell something, how do they export, import, or get capital flows, right? Now, and in this immediately the question becomes of imports and exports. How do those take place without SWIFT? So, well, one thing is that Russia has been trying to develop its own system, an alternate system, but it's not there yet. So, it's been trying for 5-6 years, but it's not ready yet. And unless you have others who are members of it, it doesn't, you can't set up a system for yourself.
If you have alternative, it will not work.
Yeah, it will not work unless there are others who are members. So, we have to see how we can work around the SWIFT. We used to have a ruble mechanism, through which, instead of, typically what happens, I invoice you in dollars, you invoice me in dollars, even though both countries don't use dollars, right? India-Russia trade does not have to be in dollars, okay? The reason why it is typically in dollars is because there are trade imbalances, and we don't want to constantly be that I should give you as much as you need from me, and then we balance it out. That trade used to be there, but it collapsed. Okay. So, now we will have to perhaps revive some of that trade. India did continue trade with Iran even when Iran was out of the SWIFT, and it was not easy, but some mechanisms were found, some accounts were created in banks where
transactions can take
could take place.
So, transactions can happen, but it would be difficult.
At the moment, something will have to be worked. It will have to be worked on. To make it happen.
And that is where ruble also depreciated, heavily.
The ruble depreciated heavily because, I mean, the whole world, even if India finds a way around, it's not that everybody is going to find a way around. US trade with Russia will certainly get affected. Europe's trade with Russia will get affected. Europe will have to find ways of how to, if they want to continue to get gas from Russia, which they
have to find a way out.
They have to find a way out.
So, means Russian economy will be affected by this.
Absolutely.
Now, coming back to India. Why India? Because every time we read lots of unemployment, poverty, and some people are demanding that migrant crisis during COVID, Corona, this first wave, there were demand for universal basic income. And economic survey for, I think, 2017-18 or 18-19, there was a chapter on universal basic income. And some people say its time has come. So, what is universal basic income? One thing. And second, ma'am, as a layman, as a student, should it be implemented in India, or what are the challenges?
So, universal basic income would be to make sure that everybody gets a certain income. So, let us say, suppose we thought that every household should at least, every 5-member household should at least get 1 lakh rupees a year. Okay. Just
example.
Just as an example, if that's the number that is chosen, or 72,000 a year. I mean, different political parties came up with different numbers. So I'm not going to go into those. But the concept is that everybody should basically get at least that much. So that is, it is universal in the sense that nobody should be left out, and it should be given to everybody. Now, there are various models people suggest. Some people say that we should give it to everyone. Some people would say tax the rich and identify who it goes to. But once you start identifying, it's no longer universal. Okay. Because then again it becomes who will identify, who will say that such and such a person is poor. We have a lot of schemes for people below poverty line
Yes.
already. So one of the first challenges is that it creates is that when you say universal, are you going to give it to everybody? Okay, and then maybe you and I will also get it, but that's it. Nobody really means for us to be getting it, but the idea is to give it, have a basic income for the poor. Now we have a lot of direct benefit transfers and schemes. So the next question that will come up is, do we shut all those down and we give a universal basic income to everybody, which would actually be a transfer from the very poor to the better off?
Right. Yes.
Right? So I think politically, even before economists may say, yes, this is a good idea that everybody should have universal basic income. But politically, when you are going to say that, okay, either you say that I'll give more money, bring it out from somewhere, and there'll be a, dole out, say 1 lakh rupees to everyone in the country, the entire country. That's a huge fiscal cost.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then if you'll borrow, that's going to, do all sorts of things. That's going to be inflationary and again hurt the poorest. If you think that, and that's one of the big challenges, if you think that let me stop all other subsidies and give only universal basic income, and in the subsidies, fertilizer subsidy, for example, you'll have the farmers who will start protesting because actually they get much more than this. It's not that only the poor farmers get fertilizer subsidy, everybody gets fertilizer subsidy, and big farmers who sell their produce have shown us how powerful they are in the
farm crisis and this movement. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So you know that there are lobbies which will protest if you try to shut down the existing subsidies, even those that are not for the poor.
Right.
Like fertilizer. Now suppose the second challenge. So that's one challenge. Subsidies which go even for the rich, but powerful lobbies, what do you do with those? Let me not call them rich, but better off, not below poverty's line.
Right.
A surplus selling farmer who's using a lot of fertilizer is not below poverty line. The second big challenge, and that's really for politics, it's an equally big challenge, is that maybe you can create money for a universal basic income by cutting down on direct benefit transfers. So what are they today? They are a transfer for Swachh Bharat, for the toilet scheme, Indira Awas Yojana, women get some money, like now they get some, the pensions get given. So there are a large number of DBTs that get given. Now for BPL, mainly they are for BPL, right? Are you going to shut those down? Are you going to shut down the free PDS ration? Now people have been quite happy. So anecdotally and media reports are that people are quite happy that they've got grain. They've got wheat, rice, dal, some oil, some,
sugar.
Some sugar. So they've been happy. Are you going to shut all that down? Because, you'll move from that to universal basic income. You possibly can't afford to do double.
Obviously, yes.
Right? If you do that, then effectively the poor who were getting things will get less, because you'll be taking those away and redistributing them across to even all the better off. Right? That becomes a huge political challenge. Can you shut down any of these schemes?
No.
And should you? So one is politically, can you? And second is, do you think that's a good thing to take something from the extremely poor and redistribute it equally among everybody? So, those are the kind of challenges. So, one is the fiscal challenge. The second is the challenge of if you were to do away with the subsidies for the better off. The third is the challenge of if you were to get rid of all the DBTs for the very poor and distribute this money equally. So, I don't think that India is ready for a universal basic income. And while these things were discussed, and Arvind Subramaniam, when he was Chief Economic Advisor, had proposed a universal basic income, it got discussed and then
shelved.
Yeah, and I don't think India is ready for it. At least as long as we have these extreme poverties, people who are extremely poor. it might make more sense to, target them.
Because we already have targeted system.
And they're working very well.
Very well, and
They're
people are
working
happy, right?
People are happy, and
Yes.
money is going directly into their bank accounts with very little leakage.
Yes, yes. And because this is the jam trinity, we have
Yeah.
plugged those leakages.
Yeah.
And then again, if we start universal basic income, that is brilliant take, ma'am. Are we going to shut down? And then that means you are actually funding the rich people.
Yeah.
Or better off
Better off than them at least.
Yes,
better
yes,
off,
yes, ma'am.
Better off than the extremely poor. So how you want to?
So India is not yet ready for universal basic income.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to ask from rural distress, given the kind of unemployment we are facing and joblessness we are witnessing, or such reports are being published, should MGNREGA be expanded? Because we saw during COVID, government also increased budgetary allocation for MGNREGA. So ultimately, MGNREGA came as a last, you can say, rescuer for the government. So are we going to, or what is the issue if we expand the MGNREGA gamut? Because ultimately, MGNREGA saved the government.
So MGNREGA is a demand-driven system. If there is more demand for work from households, if they are not getting work elsewhere, then at least whatever is guaranteed, the 100 days of labor for each household, they will get that. So it's the beauty of MGNREGA is that you might put 68,000 crores as was done, but if there is a crisis and the demand for MGNREGA work by households goes up, then the government, because it has given it, it is committed to providing that much money, so it has to expand. So one of the issues that came up in this budget, so a lot of people were saying, oh, the allocation for MGNREGA has been cut, and therefore this government has cut money for welfare schemes. Now, why is that not true? That's not true, because while there is the budget estimate is 25% less than last year. Okay, last year's realized figure. Last year's COVID time, because of COVID, you had more demand than you thought you would. People had gone back to their villages and there was distress. This year's budget number for MGNREGA is based on the assumption that you will not have COVID. Right? However, if you do have another wave, and if that does make people go back and demand jobs under MGNREGA, the budget will have to expand. So it will.
So it is based on the assumption that this pandemic has become endemic. Lots and lots of people are getting vaccinated. So we are assuming that economy by and large will come on track. So there will not be that kind of demand for MGNREGA.
And equally importantly, if there is demand, the budget will expand.
Right. Great. But at the same time, ma'am, if we look at MGNREGA system, there is another loophole also. Like rural wages are going up, few people are ready to work on the farms, farming cost is going up. So will it not be better for the government to restrict MGNREGA as a contingency plan rather than making it perpetual?
See, because it is a demand-driven system, if you keep the wages below minimum wages, okay, then actually it works as a system where people fall back on MGNREGA when there is distress.
Right. Yes,
right.
Yes,
Otherwise, nobody will want to go and break stones and do manual labor for a low wage.
Yes,
so you don't actually need to get rid of MGNREGA and make it contingency driven by design. You don't have to do that by law, because it is already that by design. If you're just paying you all the time, suppose you and I didn't have jobs and income.
Right.
We would do it only when we were absolutely in distress.
Right.
We would not go and do hard manual labor unless we were in distress. So when people get jobs, the demand for MGNREGA goes down on its own.
Right.
So it is a self-targeted system that actually takes account of the business cycle in the economy. So you don't need, that's it by design. So you don't need to do it by law.
By law. Okay. But ma'am, I find it discriminatory Why? Because we have MGNREGA for rural job unemployment. Do we not have unemployment in urban areas? So can we design, because urban people, they are also facing these similar type of challenges, but we have MGNREGA to take care of that. But what scheme, or should MGNREGA, or there should be a separate employment guarantee scheme for urban people also?
Like what Rajasthan has just promised.
Yes.
So I find that a very dangerous idea, and it was something that was being discussed. When the first wave came in, and
Yes.
after that it was being discussed, and I find it very dangerous because of a number of reasons. So first, urban migration is happening. And people, you don't even know who is a resident of an urban
Right.
area. People come, they live in slums, they're looking for work. They will, if you have a urban MGNREGA, it will attract people regardless of whether they live there or not. So suppose cities offer MGNREGA, already city infrastructure is crumbling, right? You will get people coming to wages regardless, coming to towns and cities, urban areas, regardless of whether they are going to be able to find work or not. Today when they come, they think, okay, I have this skill and I might be able to find work. If you move from that into a situation where people can come to towns and will just be getting money for being unemployed in towns, then the migration, which is currently there but it is slow. And today that migration happens because what we saw particularly in the crisis is that people come to work.
Yes.
People are coming to work.
Yes.
People are not coming here to be unemployed.
Right.
What you are going to encourage is that people are going to be coming and to be unemployed. They don't have the skills, but they will still come because you are going to offer them unskilled labor. I think also the urban infrastructure is, until we've sorted our urban infrastructure out, I don't think our urban infrastructure, given most people don't have access in urban areas. They live in slums, and those who live in slums, they come and they live in slums, they don't have access to bijli, pani, proper education, proper health facilities. Urban governments don't have the money. So, there'll be a huge pressure on urban infrastructure. So, first you won't get that skill development that happens. Second, there'll be this pressure on the urban infrastructure. Third, who will identify who should be given urban MGNREGA or not? So, suppose I am Delhi government, okay, and when I start offering urban MGNREGA here,
Right.
can you not visualize people coming from all over the country and claiming MGNREGA here, want to come and live here? Who will identify whether the person was a resident here, not a resident here? Okay, somebody will come up with a rule that they should have been a resident here for 3 years, somebody will say 5 years. You know what politicians are like, very soon they can be, okay, people who come from such and such an area or such and such a caste or such for so much time, you'll start having this entire, bad politics that can happen if you do that, right? One more fourth reason is that MGNREGA typically has a very low capital content. It's mainly labor.
Yes.
So in a rural area, you can make roads, you can dig ponds. What will you do in urban areas? Urban areas, you don't get those kinds of kacha roads. We can't start making Delhi roads as kacha roads because we want to give urban MGNREGA. If you increase the capital content, then how will you create those MGNREGA jobs? So, what will be the jobs which are low capital intensive in urban areas that you will give for under MGNREGA? So, those will be huge challenges. So, let's see how the Rajasthan government is going to address those challenges. But
these are serious challenges, ma'am. That all 4 challenges, actually these challenges stunned me. why policymakers are not looking this? You cannot simply offer something just as a political discourse.
Yes. So I find that's
disastrous.
That is why I said I was very, very worried when I heard about that idea, and I wrote about it also in my column in the print, that I was so glad that PM shelved it.
Right.
Despite all the pressure and despite all the talk, I mean, so give food grains
Yes.
to people rather than start this job creation which has all these difficulties.
Definitely. And these are genuine difficulties, and already our cities are crumbling.
Yes.
And that last point was actually so beautiful, that how will you, what those people will do, because these are manual jobs they are doing at rural areas, and there is no scope for such
There's no
such
scope
work.
for such jobs. And there's no money with local governments to give those.
Right. Great, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. In this session, we covered multiple topics related to rural distress, MGNREGA, what should be the policy initiatives, what is wrong with our policy making, and we discussed various aspects of Russian-Ukraine crisis in the context of India. And I expect, and I am hopeful, this series will be helpful not only for the students who are appearing for their personality test, but the brilliant insights shared by ma'am will be equally helpful in mains answer writing, social issues, social justice module of GS, and also to broaden your perspective with regards to essay writing. So what should be the way to think on a particular topic from various dimensions? What should be the initiatives, because you are going to be civil servants. So this session will be enlightening for you. On this note, thank you so very much. Thank you, ma'am.